All right. Hey. All right. Good evening. We'll get started for today's session over here. And as usual, okay, what we're gonna do is we'll look into some of the events to take note of for this week. Then we'll jump into the technical analysis portion to walk you through some of the analysis and opportunities. And then after that, we'll have a quick Q&A, and then we'll just wrap up for today's session by sharing with you some of the upcoming events that we may have. Okay. With that, let's get started for today's session over here. Okay, so we're gonna take a look very quickly at the overall events calendar for the week. So today, nothing much on Monday. Usually it's gonna be quiet as usual, and then tomorrow we do have the Australia and New Zealand holiday, followed by Italian side of things. Um, so tomorrow would likely be relatively quiet during the Asia, going into maybe the UK session as well. Okay, so tomorrow just take note that at least for the earlier part of the day, market may be a little bit quiet. Okay, before we go into maybe UK and US open, but not much for tomorrow. And then on Wednesday over here, we do have some Australia CPI data. This is likely going to be important, right? Because we're talking about inflation as well. So Australia CPI year on year is going to be crucial. And of course, over here you can see last data was 6.8. This time around, the expectation here is going to be 6.6. Okay, if the actual data later on Wednesday is being released, if let's say it's less than 6.6, that's great. We might then see the Aussie perhaps weakening if let's say we have a very huge deviation from the expectation of 6.6. But if let's say the actual data is actually higher than that, then we may see the Aussie dollar strengthening. Okay, but to be honest, so far, especially on most of this major inflationary data, we did not see any surprise to the upside. Okay, so we don't expect that to be happening. So I don't think that's going to be like a major surprise to the market for Wednesday itself. Okay, and on Thursday, we do have a little bit on the US side of things. We have the advanced GDP over here. Of course, we are expecting GDP to come down. Not something surprising as well, simply because we're talking about potentially recession coming in Q3 and Q4 of this year. Okay, so I don't think that's going to be a huge major data that may affect the US. Okay, but do keep an eye on it if let's say you're looking at some dollar related trades. Okay, just have in mind that there are some of these potential catalysts. Now on Friday we do have the Bank of Japan coming in. Okay, for the outlook report as well as the monetary policy statement. Now it's always very difficult to catch on to the Japan news because you can see here they're always tentative, and you won't really catch the exact time of when it's, but then you come back and check onto this, only then you realize that, oh, there was a news release in the past couple of weeks, right? That's why the Japanese yen are moving. Okay, so have that in mind that there might be some volatility coming in for the yen on Friday. Okay, but again, it's very, very difficult to trade it because we won't have an exact timing. And then to wrap up for the week, we do have the core PC price index for the US side coming in on Friday 8:30 here as well. Not much of a surprise. You can see last data was 0.3. This time around, we are expecting the same. Okay, so this week from an events perspective, relatively it's actually quiet. There's not a lot of like significant, very important data within the week. Okay, so having said that, if you translate it into some of the market movement that you can expect for the week, likely it's not going to be like huge market movement. Okay, we may continue to see some kind of like consolidation perhaps happening in the market, or maybe some slower move within the week itself. Okay, in fact, last week, if you look at the majors, many of them are basically in a consolidation corrective phase, right? So not much of a move since last week. Okay, so those are some of the events to take note of for this week. So with that said, let's jump into the technical portion of things. Okay, now we'll start off with the dollar index over here. Now, since last week, if you have been joining us, we have been covering that we're expecting a corrective pullback, and if we can get that, we can get one more move bounce higher, and that becomes a potential buy trade opportunity. So last week was again quiet, right? Last week was this entire phase where the market is just basically doing consolidation, and that's part of the market. Okay, so we have a impulse push, and then after that the market does a corrective phase. Okay, so this week here, if this is gonna be the entire piece of the correction, then we can expect a next move up here. Okay, potentially we want to see this move going higher impulsively, right? Going up fast. And if we can get that, then of course we'll be bullish on the dollar, and we may be able to ride on a very neat, decent buy trade opportunity from here, at least for the short run. Okay, this is to complete the 1, 2, 3 move. Okay, and of course the market is currently testing around at 50% Fibonacci. Okay, we do have this little channel over here which is nicely price is nicely at the bottom. So far is respecting that. So if tomorrow we can see a continuation of a rejection back up, then at least for this week we can expect the dollar to perhaps show a little bit of strength, and we can target all the way back at 103.05. Okay, so that's on the dollar index. Now if we were to rotate that into the euro side of things, right? So euro over here, currently the price is testing at 618. Okay, if I were to update this a little bit, ideally we want to see that rejection down, break that channel, does a little bit of a corrective, and then continue its momentum lower. So if we can see a decent rejection of this, market come down lower here, respecting this channel, we can then expect more downside for this week. So in fact, this is one of the potential trade I'm personally looking at. Of course, this is not a direct trade signal for you to just follow, but the idea here is you need to, of course, have your proper plan. Okay, so this one here, if you're looking at selling this, of course your invalidation will be just above this recent high at 1.1075. Okay, and your target potentially can bring it all the way back down to 1.071511 area. Okay, of course the market doesn't really go straight up like that, so as it continues to move lower, then you just manage your position along the way. Okay, so keep an eye. I think this is definitely one of the clearest structure and opportunity within this week itself on euro dollar. Okay, now moving on, we have the pound. So pound for me over here is just not the clearest one, so we're maintaining a neutral perspective. The market is basically doing consolidation since last week. We do have a different scenarios that potentially can play out, right? So one is, of course, this can be just a flag and then we just see a breakdown, which means this is a 3, 4, and 5, and then this is a B, C, right? That would be one possible scenario. Now, alternatively, what can happen is what we have drawn here. This is a B, C as a running flat, and this can be a start of a 5-wave move up to complete the larger degree wave 5. So it's not the clearest. Therefore, for me, I would not pay too much attention to focus on this. Instead, I would just look out for other setups. Okay, so that's my view on the pound. Next up, we have the Aussie. Okay, Aussie here, depending on how aggressive you are, for me, I'm just maintaining a little bit more on the neutral side of things. I would like to be a bit more patient. But of course, over here, if you're more aggressive, okay, you may look for a potential buy opportunity around that 6650 zone, where you can see basically this is a A, B, C, or WXY true wave move channel development. So this is your impulse leg, and you can expect one more push back up. Okay, now an aggressive way of taking this, of course, is to look to buy here with your invalidation level below that, and then your target just above this recent high, right? So your risk reward is definitely very, very attractive. But of course, you run the risk where the market just drops and break through that previous low and kind of changes the entire structure, where we then look for more downside, right? So for me, I'm neutral right now, and I would like to see how the market's going to react first, okay, before committing to any of the trade, whether it's going to be buy or sell, depending on how the market is going to develop and react around this 6650 area. Okay, of course, if you're also looking at some of the harmonic patterns, right? Just to very quickly drop a note, we do have a very decent godly completion as well. Okay, so that's coming around that area. So quite little nice confluence, right? Whether you're looking at Elliott Wave point of view or you're looking at a harmonic structure perspective, um, that's where you can look for a potential buy, right? 6650 with an invalidation level below 6618. Okay, so again, if you're interested in that, do keep an eye on Aussie. But for me personally, I'll wait for it to come down a little bit, see how it's gonna react there, and then I'm only gonna make a decision from there on. Okay, so that's on Aussie. And then we have the dollar Canadian. Okay, so dollar Canadian as of last week, we did cover the potential where market may have completed the fifth wave, and this may start to bounce higher from there. And in fact, we kind of got that for last week, right? From last week. So basically, dollar CAD kind of did an impulsive move throughout the week previously. So this week going forward here, we're looking at a true wave pullback for a buy setup. Okay, if let's say the market doesn't do that and it just keeps going, I would not be interested in the buy yet until I get a true wave pullback. Okay, what can happen over here? Of course, the market may still push up a little bit more because internally it may be doing a 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 to complete the bigger degree, maybe wave A or wave 1. So just be a little bit more patient, right? Buying here may not be the best place to get involved in it. Always wait for a decent corrective pullback. Okay, so in short, we maintain the bullish bias on the dollar Canadian, but in terms of timing, we'll rather wait for a retracement, wait for a corrective pullback before we commit to the buy. Okay, so this is clear. I think this week here, you may or may not get anything, because if this is going to come down correctively, it should develop slower, and that means that you may not get anything within the week because it needs time to develop, right? So just be patient on that. Next up, we have the dollar yen. Okay, so dollar yen, we are looking at potential sell. Last week we did get a very nice little rejection. Market seems to be pulling back right now, so if you have any sell, this would likely have hit you back at a break even. If you don't have any entry yet, then do look out for a sell. Okay, for me, I don't think that this is gonna go higher impulsively, but perhaps what may develop here is something like that. Okay, a little bit of a corrective crawl, and if that's the case, then of course we can still expect more downside because this is the impulse wave. This does look pretty corrective in nature, so we are expecting still the downside. Okay, so I don't get for me, this is not a sell setup yet. Okay, but of course, different traders would have different entry technique and strategies. So fall back to your own personal entry technique. Yeah, but over here, I think the direction and the structure is pretty clear. The higher probability side is still focusing on the potential sell. Okay. Yeah, so I think this week there are a couple of things that definitely are clear, right? Like for example, I mentioned dollar index, euro dollar, Aussie dollar potentially there as well. Okay, dollar CAD direction is clear, but perhaps timing, you need to just be patient. And then dollar yen here, the direction is also fairly clear. Okay, so dollar yen here, nice little move here. Okay, do keep an eye on that. Okay, gold. Now last week we did cover also in terms of gold, not to be aggressively buying up, because there's a possibility that this may be happening, right? And right now what we're observing here is that the market is basically pulling back. We can expect a little bit more downside towards 1950. Okay, so if you're more aggressive in the short term, you can continue to look for sell. But if you are more of a swing trade or longer term setup, okay, then do wait for price to come down a little bit more towards maybe 1950, and from there look for a rejection. And if you can get that, we'll be rotating our bias to a bullish view after that. Okay, so go here short term downside, but perhaps going into maybe Thursday or Friday the week, we may start to rotate back up. Okay, long term for me, gold is still bullish. Short term here, bearish. Okay, so that's the view on that. Crude oil, we are neutral on that simply because there are a couple of possibilities of how the market can play out here. One is that this does a little corrective pattern over here, and of course, if that's the case, we'll be looking for sell, and we'll be rotating to a bearish view. The update here would then be this is wave 4, this is wave 5. Okay, so that's one possibility. Alternatively, if this starts to bounce higher from here, impulsively, then of course this becomes wave 4. We wait for a pullback. We'll look for another pushback up to complete wave 5. Okay, so for now, we need more information, and for that reason, we're just going to be maintaining a neutral point of view. S&P, okay, last week, basically the market was doing this. I think this week here, we're going to likely continue to see more consolidation. What can happen, of course, the market can still pull back up a little bit slowly, and then, we can get another bigger move down, something like that, right? That's the expectation that I have. So overall, I think equity side may not be very interesting for the week. It may continue to just be corrective in nature, but if let's say the market is able to come down a little bit more to retest this area at 4070, 4068, I think from a longer term perspective, we might have a buy trade up. So if this is going to develop, it may take the entire week from now until maybe Thursday or Friday to develop, because again, we want it to come down slow. If that's the case, then we have a buy opportunity, maybe late this week, early next week. Right? So S&P here, I think just be a little bit patient. The direction, I don't think you want to be selling it, but wait for it to come down a little bit more before we start to pay a bit more attention to buy setups. Okay, so that's on the S&P side of things. Okay, I'll jump to Aussie Yen over here just to share a view as well, because I think Aussie Yen may give us a pretty nice little setup and trade opportunity for this week. Okay, so a couple of things to note here. We do have this little crawl structure. Okay, and of course you can see this is very corrective in nature, and we get our very first impulse. Okay, and this structure here, we can see it as a potential expanding flat development. Okay, so we have an A, we have a B, and then this may play out as a C wave, right? And internally here may develop into a 5-wave structure. Now with that kind of expectation, if we can continue to see, for the next maybe 1 or 2 days, maybe going into Wednesday, if this is going to develop as a correction, we have an impulse correction here as well. A potential sell area will be around at 15,618, and we can write this all the way down towards closer towards 88 and 8730 area, right? Basically the previous low. And of course, that downside you can see is huge opportunity against this invalidation, right? So keep an eye on Aussie Yen. For me, the two clearest setups so far as of what we're seeing here going into this week is definitely going to be Euro Dollar as well as the Aussie Yen, right? This is the two that I have in terms of my top priority, right? So that's on that. And then lastly over here we have Bitcoin. Okay, so Bitcoin right now is coming down quite impulsive, especially from last week. So we may see one of two key levels being tested, right? So what can potentially play out here is this can be a 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Okay, now would this be the end of wave 5, or is this just a pullback for another bounce? To me right now, that's not the most important thing. Okay, I think the key area here is here, this level, right? 26535. Ideally we want to just wait and see how the market's going to react off there. So if you're a short-term trader, okay, wait for a decent corrective structure. If you can get that, maybe give it another 2 to 3 days. By Thursday, if you see something like that, you can consider this sell, but you definitely want to take some profits off the table here, because this can just U-turn from there. If you're not so much of a short-term trader, then my suggestion is just stay out, be patient, wait until the market tests this level, see how it develops, then we only make a more informed decision from there on. Okay. So this is my view on Bitcoin. Okay, so generally I think the focus is still definitely going to be on like euro, dollar, and Aussie yen for me. If you are interested in a little bit on the shorter term setup, some alternative view that will be Aussie dollar. Okay, dollar yen here as well. Looking for a potential sell if you're interested in that. Um, Other than that, the rest of it may not be the best. Okay, you may get some short-term opportunity, depending again on your style of trading and the strategy that you're using. Okay, so um, those are the things that I'll like to cover, right? So even though here also say that can also be a godly pattern for Aussie dollar. Yeah, I think we can't touch on that too, right? Good. So I'll look at some of the questions. We'll cover some questions over here, and then we'll do a wrap up by sharing with you some of the upcoming events that we may have. Okay. Um. So I see a question coming in, from Boba Boba asking, what if the market move impulsively towards 6,650 in Aussie dollar and then form a V shape immediately? Do you consider this as a potential buy setup? Yes. Okay, the answer is yes. If we kind of get a very fast push down and this forms a V, I would wait for a decent small little flag here, and that would be a buy setup. Okay. Um, the alternative setup for me is if this does a little bit of a crawl. Okay, so if this comes down crawl, I think that will be a decent buy trade as well, and then you can use the breakout entry technique. Right. So those are the two setups that I often look at. Right. So Aussie dollar over here, you can consider looking out for this too. Okay. Cool. Okay, so someone is asking about dollar franc. So very quick one, we'll jump into dollar franc. Um, Dollar franc is not the cleanest setup of all, right? We do have this low, but the market seems to be pulling back quite fast, quite deep. You may want to look out for a potential double bottom structure for a bounce, right? But I think the overall momentum as of now is still down. So this is not a clean setup to be buying. Okay, so for me, I would rather be a little bit more neutral, give it more time, be patient, see how the market is going to develop first. Okay, so we have over here LW asking about Euro AUD. Okay, Euro AUD right now is developing a little bit more of an impulsive push. So on the 4 hour, it may not be the clearest, daily structure might give us a little more clue. We're still continuously seeing a divergence here, which again, I wouldn't be personally buying it up because at any point in time, this may complete a 5-wave structure. Okay. So for me, the direction from a daily scale, at least, okay, definitely I'm more in favor of potential sell. But again, if you go back to a lower time frame, you don't have a sell setup. Okay, so just be patient. I mean, we were looking at this as a break and see if we can get a 3-wave little corrective structure. We didn't really get that, but instead you start to observe how the market has developed, right? It forms this instead. Okay, so instead of an impulse correction, and then we can expect more downside, what the market did was the market did an impulse. After that, it starts to turn this impulse into a correction itself. And then therefore we get another push up, right? So right now we just remain patient. Again, if we want to sell, we wait for a rejection, we wait for a correction. That will be the sell setup. Okay, but again, this requires time. I don't think you're gonna get it within this week. Okay, so nothing much on Euro AUD for now. Okay, AMD, I think one of you is asking about stocks. Not the nicest setup of all, but if you're just trading a very simple kind of structure basis analysis, right? Of course, right now the market is kind of testing the previous resistance and support. Okay, if you're following this kind of analysis methodology, then of course you'll be able to then look for opportunities to look for buy trade, right? And then of course you can put in trend line, look for a breakout. That may be something that you can look into as well. Okay, yeah, so overall, I think, we can see this particular stock as a potential uptrend. Okay. Um, yeah, so again, back to the question on what you need to ask yourself is what's your strategy, what's your entry requirement, and things like that. Okay, cool. Okay, yeah, so Ted is asking about Euro odd as well, so I think we cover on that, right? So yeah, Euro odd for me this week, nothing much over there. Okay, Emmanuel here also asks, or mentioned, right? It might also form an internal 5 wave to complete wave 3 for Aussie. No, wave. Um, yeah, I mean, we do not want to overcomplicate the whole process over here. Okay, but the thing is, we want to see how the market is going to react here, right? I mean, if it's going to come down slow, then obviously we're going to expect more upside. Okay, but if this breaks through, then of course the count here needs to be updated a little bit if the market breaks below this level. Okay, but for now, we just want to wait and see how the market develops, right? Because when we have more clue here, we're able to make a. We'll probably need to continue monitoring, of course, update our analysis in terms of the labeling as well. Okay, so that's the idea of it. Okay, cool. Okay, I see one of you is asking about Kiwi dollar here as well. So very quick update. Let me just remove everything. Okay. I think for Kiwi dollar here, if you have a sell, you can potentially hold on to it a little bit, but if you don't have it, um, selling from this structure to this low may not be very attractive, right? Because it doesn't need to come to this low, right? You can really U-turn anytime from here on. But if you really take a look at this structure here and this structure here, they're generally quite corrective, right? So what can happen over here is this can go up and it can continue to develop into maybe a bigger structure like that as well. And this can be a 1, 2, 3, and then another move down, right? So it can really be stuck in this zone for some time. Okay. Look at it from a daily point of view. Okay, again, you can see of course this may break down, right? So this may be the correction, this may be a 3 wave move like that. You may break this level. Alternatively, it can also turn into a longer corrective structure. Okay, something like that before that drop. So the thing here is, again, as I mentioned, if you have any sell, okay, you can continue to hold on to it and see if you can break this. Okay, if not, selling here, you run the risk where this just goes back up and develop into a bigger corrective structure. Okay, so that's my view, right? So I think if you don't have any sell, just be a little bit patient, focus on something else that are, I think, clearer. If you already have, then just hold on to it. Cool. Yeah, so that's my view on it. Okay, good. Yeah, so I hope I can cover most of all these aspects for today. Okay, so very quickly over here, I also want to do a quick closing note. Okay, we do have an upcoming event on the 27th of April, which is gonna be on a Thursday, right? So this event is gonna be a offline event. Okay, so of course you need to be physically present to be able to participate with it. It's gonna be at Amada Hotel, okay, in PJ. The timing here is gonna be 8 p.m. to about 10:30, and we're gonna talk about this topic on EA, or AKA, some of you would know as robot trading, okay, or automated trading. Okay, we're gonna talk about this topic over here to share with you a bit more into what exactly is EA robot trading, what is automation, what are some of the elements that you need to be aware of and take care to actually see success in this. Okay, and of course, last but not least, how can we differentiate, actual EA EA and robot trading versus like potential money game and scams. So if you're interested in this, it's gonna be conducted in Chinese in Mandarin. Okay, you need to RSVP for it, right? Because from what I've received from the organizer, they told me that up to just yesterday we have about 70 packs registered. Okay, so of course we do have some limitation in terms of the venue space. Okay, so if you're really keen into that, you need to definitely RSVP and confirm your seat with the organizer. Okay, so if you're watching this on Zoom, okay, just click on the link that they will be sharing soon. It's a WhatsApp link. Okay, click onto it. It will direct you to WhatsApp, and then you'll be able to directly communicate with the support team. Okay, and then if you're interested, RSVP with them directly. Now, if you're watching this on my YouTube channel, okay, I've already included a WhatsApp link in the video description below. Same thing, you click on that link, it will lead you over directly to WhatsApp, and you then can directly communicate with the organizer. Okay, let them know you're interested in this event, and then RSVP and confirm your seat for that event itself. Okay, so it's this coming Thursday. Yeah, so it's an offline event. Okay, so it's happening in Malaysia, right? So if you're not geographically located in Malaysia, KL and PJ, hopefully in the future we'll have some other location or even maybe online that we can share with you a little bit more, right? But for this coming one, is gonna be a physical offline event. All right, so that's all from me for today's session over here. Okay, all the best to your trading, and hopefully just now what we've covered may be able to give you some insights onto some of these opportunities that you can keep an eye on for this week. Okay, so good. All the best, and we'll see you guys soon again. Okay, bye bye.